Welcome to The Explainer. We're all about breaking down complex topics using the source material itself. And today, wow, do we have a good one. We're diving into a technical analysis of a stock that just went on an absolutely wild ride. Let's just start with this one massive number because it tells a pretty dramatic story all by itself. 41.6%. That is the incredible gain that Advanced Micro Devices, AMD, saw in its stock price over just a handful of days. So that brings us to the big question, right? How on earth does a stock rocket up that fast? And more importantly, what does it tell us about what's coming next? We're going to unpack all of it by digging into this analysis. It's really a classic story, a battle between unbelievable momentum and some very serious warning signs. So, to set the scene, the stock didn't just climb. It went what analysts call parabolic. It was basically a vertical launch that got the entire market's attention. But it wasn't just the price that was soaring. The trading volume, that's the sheer number of shares being bought and sold, it just went through the roof. I mean, look at this. On October 6th, nearly 250 million shares changed hands. That's way, way above its average. This tells you that there was a ton of conviction, a huge amount of interest from investors fueling this incredible surge. Okay, so let's get into it. Why, on the surface, did everything look so incredibly positive? What were the technical signals that seemed to be screaming buy? Well, to really understand a stock's underlying trend, you have to look past the day-to-day noise. And analysts do that with something called moving averages. Think of it like this. Instead of worrying about if today is hotter than yesterday, you look at the average temperature for the whole month. It smooths everything out and shows you the real direction. That's exactly what these do for a stock's price. And yeah, the slide puts it perfectly. It's a constantly updated average price. And the rule of thumb here is really, really simple. When the current stock price is trading above its key moving averages, that's generally seen as a very positive or bullish sign. It means the momentum is strong. And for AMD during this massive run-up, the moving averages were painting a picture of just pure, undeniable strength. The price was way above the short-term averages, confirming that recent momentum. It was flying high above the medium-term ones, showing a really solid trend, and it was just miles above the long-term 200-day average, which proves the underlying strength was legit. It was a total clean sweep. Everything looked great. But, and this is a big but, here's where the story takes a sharp turn. Because while that trend looked incredibly powerful, a bunch of other gauges on the dashboard were flashing bright red. Warning lights suggesting this engine was seriously overheating. So let's quickly nail down what these warning lights mean, starting with this idea you see here of a stock being overbought. Now, this doesn't mean the company is bad or anything. It just means the price has shot up so far, so fast, that it's probably due for a pullback, a correction, back to a more reasonable level. And one of the most popular ways to measure this is the Relative Strength Index, or RSI. You can kind of think of it like a speedometer for the stock's price. Anything over 70 is usually considered the red zone, the warning track for being overbought. And as you're about to see, AMD didn't just hit 70, it blew right past it. Another really key indicator is Bollinger Bands. Basically, they create this channel that a stock's price usually trades inside of. The big red flag is when the price punches through the top of that channel. It's a huge signal that the move has gone too far and is becoming extreme. Now this is what's so fascinating. It wasn't just one warning light. It was the entire dashboard blinking at once. The RSI was way up at 83, deeply overbought. Other momentum gauges like stochastics and Williams %R, all screaming overbought. And critically, look at that last one. The price was trading above its upper Bollinger Band, signaling total overextension. And this number, this just drives the point home. Another analysis, one that tries to find a stock's fair value trend line, found that AMD was trading almost 32% higher than where it probably should have been. So what we have here is this massive conflict, right? On one hand, you have an undeniably powerful bullish trend, but on the other, you have all these clear signs of just exhaustion. The best analogy is a rubber band. It's been stretched and stretched and stretched to its absolute limit. Sure, it might stretch a tiny bit more, but the risk of it snapping back and snapping back hard is getting higher by the second.
So with this major conflict between the trend and the warning signs, the analysis laid out three potential scenarios, three possible flight paths for AMD. Where could it possibly go from here?
Okay, so two main paths. The bullish path was that the stock could somehow find even more fuel and blast through its recent highs, but given all those overbought signals we just saw, this was seen as pretty unlikely. The bear scenario, which was seen as much more probable, was for a pullback, a correction, where the price falls back to cool off a bit. And then there was this third kind of middle-of-the-road option. The stock could just go into a holding pattern, trade sideways for a while, chop around. This would let it take a much-needed breather while the market just digests those huge gains and figures out where the price should really be.
So, after weighing this super powerful momentum against all those stark warnings from pretty much every indicator out there, what was the final call? What's the big takeaway?
The final verdict was pretty clear. While the long-term trend for AMD is strong, in the short term, the stock was just severely overbought. And here's the key idea. A correction wouldn't just be likely, it would actually be healthy. It would allow the stock to build a much more stable foundation for any future growth. So if you take anything away from this, it should be just how important it is to look beyond just a rising price tag. I mean, a strong trend is fantastic, but that doesn't mean a stock can't get way ahead of itself. You need multiple indicators to get the full story, and those overbought signals are your crucial warning signs of short-term risk, even when the long-term picture looks great.
And all of this leaves us with that central tension, that core question of technical analysis. When you see a stock soar this high, this fast, is that a sign of incredible strength, or is it a sign of imminent danger? And as this fantastic case study of AMD shows us, sometimes it can absolutely be a sign of both.